Dear children, Class 10 History, Chapter 3, Nationalism in India, Part 2. In the last class, we had learnt about non-cooperation movement in the cities and why non-cooperation movement slowed down in the cities. Today, we are going to learn about non-cooperation movement in the countryside. Let's see rebellion in the countryside. The non-cooperation movement spread in villages. The non-cooperation movement was joined by the peasants and the tribal people. One such struggle was the peasant struggle of Awadh, led by Baba Ramchandra. Baba Ramchandra was an indentured laborer in Fiji. He started a movement against the talukdars and landlords who demanded high rents and various forms of other taxes from the peasants. Peasants had to work at landlords' farms without any wages, known as begar. The peasants had no right over the leased land and they were regularly evicted. The peasant movement initiated by Ramchandra demanded for lowering down of the revenue and abolition of begar. At some places, Nayi Dobi Bands were organized by the panchayats. It was a kind of strike by the barbers and the washermen in order to deprive of the landlords from the basic services. In 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru went to different villages of Awadh and tried to understand the problems being faced by the peasants. In October 1920, he formed the Awadh Kisan Sabha. The Awadh Kisan Sabha was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra and a few others. Soon this became so popular that 300 branches were set up in the villages around the region. When the Congress started the non-cooperation movement in 1921, it decided to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the non-cooperation movement. But what happened was that the Awadh peasant struggle later on turned into a different direction, means it became very violent, which was not acceptable to the Congress. As the movement spread, the peasants attacked the houses of talukdars and merchants. They looted the bazaars and took away the grains. Soon it was found that at many places local leaders had told peasants that it was instructed by Gandhiji that no taxes will be paid and land will be redistributed among the poor people. Another such case where the message of Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of Swaraj was misinterpreted was Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh. Here, a militant guerrilla movement spread in the early 1920s, which again was not a form of struggle accepted by the Congress. The reason for the tribal movement was the Forest Act made by the colonial government that barred the tribals from entering into the villages for collection of fuel wood, fruits or to graze their cattle. Not only this, the government forced them to work as begars for building a road. The leader of this tribal movement was Alluri Sitaramaraju, who declared himself as a man with superpowers who could sustain even the bullet shots. The tribals were impressed by Alluri Sitaramaraju and proclaimed him as an incarnation of God. Raju was greatly inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. Therefore, he persuaded the tribals to wear khadi and give up drinking. But on the other hand, he did not believe in the philosophy of peaceful demonstrations. He believed that India could be liberated with the use of force and not the non-violence. The Gudem rebels under him attacked police stations, attempted to kill the British people and used guerrilla warfare techniques to achieve Swaraj. Later on, Raju was arrested and a death sentence was given to him in 1924. He was still considered as a folk hero. Next one, Swaraj in the plantations. The workers of tea plantations had their own understanding of Swaraj. For them, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of their enclosed places. These workers were not allowed to move freely out of the tea gardens without permission. This was due to the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, which bound them to follow this rule of confinement. They thought that the non-cooperation movement was a sign of Gandhi Raj, which would enable them to attain freedom and own land in their own villages. Therefore, they left the tea gardens and went back to their homes. However, they were not able to do so as there was a railway and steamer strike. At last, they were caught and beaten up by the police. Now, this non-cooperation movement was called off due to a very violent incident at Chauri Chaura. So, what is this Chauri Chaura? Chauri Chaura incident happened on 4th February 1922 in Chauri Chaura village in Gorakhpur district of Uttar Pradesh. This incident led to killing of 22 policemen and immediate end of non-cooperation movement by Gandhiji owing to violence. Now, let us see the two factors that shaped Indian politics towards the late 1920s. The first one was the effect of the worldwide economic depression. Agriculture prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed after 1930. As the demand for agricultural goods fell and exports declined, peasants found it difficult to sell their harvest and pay their revenue. The second factor which shaped the Indian politics in the late 1920s was the arrival of Simon Commission. In 1928, a commission was appointed under Sir John Simon called Simon Commission. It was appointed to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. The problem was that the commission did not have a single Indian member. They were all British. When the Simon Commission arrived in India, it was greeted with the slogan, "Go back Simon." All parties, including the Congress and the Muslim League, participated in the demonstrations. Lahore session of the Congress. In December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore Congress formalized the demand of Purna Swaraj or full independence for India. It was declared that 26 January 1930 would be celebrated as the Independence Day. The Salt March and the Civil Disobedience Movement. Mahatma Gandhi found in salt a very powerful symbol that could unite the nation. On 31st January 1930, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating 11 demands. The most important of all these was the demand to abolish salt tax. Salt was something consumed by the rich and the poor alike, and it was one of the most essential items of food. The tax on salt and the government monopoly over its production, Mahatma Gandhi declared, revealed the most oppressive phase of the British rule in India. So, Gandhiji stated that if the demands were not fulfilled by 11th March, the Congress would launch a civil disobedience campaign. Viceroy Irwin was unwilling to negotiate. So, Mahatma Gandhi started his famous Salt March accompanied by 78 of his trusted volunteers. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhiji's ashram in Sabarmati to the Gujarati coastal town of Dandi. Now, let us see the civil disobedience movement. The volunteers walked for 24 days about 10 miles a day. Thousands came to hear Mahatma Gandhi wherever he stopped, and he told them what he meant by Swaraj and urged them to peacefully defy the British. On 6th April, he reached Dandi and ceremonially violated the law, manufacturing salt by boiling seawater. This marked the beginning of the civil disobedience movement.